Yes, sir. Welcome. First, I'd like to ask um, Sean or Mr. Faircloth, what do you prefer to be called?
Sean's good.
All right, that's great. I have a short intro that I'd like to read, if that's all right.
Sure.
All right. Sean Faircloth served 5 terms in the Maine legislature on both the Judiciary and Appropriations Committees. He has spoken around the U.S. about the Constitution, secularism and law, children's policy, obesity policy, and sex crime law. Faircloth graduated from the University of Notre Dame and has a law degree from the University of California Hastings College of the Law. Is that all correct?
Yes.
Okay. You served as a state assistant attorney general and as a lobbyist for the Maine State Bar Association. In 2009, Mr. Faircloth became executive director of the Secular Coalition for America, advocating for separation of church and state and for greater acceptance of non-theistic viewpoints in American life. As executive director of Secular Coalition for America, Mr. Faircloth has conceived of and drafted and orchestrated the Secular Decade Plan and has worked with secular Americans nationwide to continually improve this plan, which offers a specific strategy for returning America to its secular roots. Mr. Faircloth's first book is titled Attack of the Theocrats: How the Religious Right Harms Us All and What We Can Do About It. The book focuses on the importance of returning America to its secular roots. That's a really noble and praiseworthy goal, and I am really happy to have you on the show.
Oh,
I have a little more that I could read specifically about your association with Mr. Dawkins, but if you'd like, we're running a little bit behind, and I'd like to go ahead and ask you a couple questions.
great. Yeah.
What is your take on the recent comment by Bernard McGurk of Fox News and Fox News' reaction to it?
I don't know what you mean, but tell me Bernard McGurk's comment.
He was talking about the Satanist statue, saying that the people responsible should be allowed to put it up and then shot in the head immediately afterward.
I did hear about that.
And Fox News has declined any response to uh, basically, distance themselves from that comment. So I'm just wondering how you think that is a reflection of the deterioration of secularism in, if not in culture, in how the religious right is purporting themselves in the media and where that could eventually lead, I guess. So just take that and however you would
I
like
think
to.
you said a deterioration of secularism. That sounds like potentially a deterioration of the mental state of Mr. McGurk. He might need treatment. But I guess what I would really say is that the faux news is a political organization. They're out to say things in service to an extreme right-wing propaganda agenda, an extreme right-wing propaganda machine. That's been helpful as far as strategy. I think it's all a con game, frankly. I think it's all smoke and mirrors, that really these debates are something they look at as a political value. That is to say that the right feels, and they may be correct about this, that average Joe or Jane, especially in more conservative parts of the country, they hear about Satanists, and you have a propaganda machine that is really manipulating people with these kinds of side issues to keep them distracted from the central issues of our time, which include church-state separation, but also include basic economic justice, that you get a lot of folks to vote against their own self-interest by having bread and circuses, silly sideshows like this about statues. One of the things that I'm focusing on in strategy with the Secularity USA project is a 10-point vision of a secular America. And in that, we turn the tables on the folks on the right. And we offer 10 areas of law current American law, where there's religious bias, and where people are hurt, where there's victims, where people are harmed. So we put them on the defensive, and we say, we are coming to the defense of vulnerable children. We are coming to the defense of senior citizens who want to control their own bodies at the end of life. We're coming to the defense of members of our armed services who are sometimes discriminated against or mistreated because of their lack of fundamentalist viewpoint. So that's the path that I'm suggesting for folks strategically, is that we move in that direction, because we want to be the ones who convince Joe Sixpack and Soccer Mom to be on our side, and I think we can be successful at that if we follow a strategic path.
I'd just like to get this quote in, and please let me know if this is not an accurate attribution. But Richard Dawkins has said of you that you have a proven ability to strategize, organize, and energize, qualities essential to making secularism a successful social movement. I want him out speaking far and wide.
I think he did say something like that. That might be a quote from, I don't know where he said that, but yeah, I think that is accurate. Yes. And I guess I'm very appreciative of you quoting that comment, but I guess what I'd say overall is that we, whether we consider ourselves skeptic or whatever term we want to use, we need to all take a collective step back and see how we're going to succeed in the marketplace of ideas. And the problem is sadly, the religious right has been more strategic. Do they have the smarter viewpoint? Of course not. But have they been more strategic in the political process? I think, unfortunately, they have. They have veto power over one of two major political parties. They're a major force in American life. And frankly, secularists, of whatever stripe or color, do not have that same level of power. And that's what Secularity USA is about, is being practical. Let's have a practical plan to move us forward.
Thank you. That's excellent. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to, I believe, Joe is next. And again, we really appreciate you coming on the show, and we value what you're doing.
Absolutely, hands down. Sean, thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate you responding to me and being so awesome in our replies together or with each other. That's great. But what I want to note here is actually I seen your speech live at the Reason Row. I just wanted to put that out there in 2012, March 2012, I think was, right? So it was a great time. It was a historic event, I think, and it was great. It was an honor to watch you up there live. It was great. So actually, that's actually the photo I think I'm using right now. It's from the Reason Rally. So I think my first question you already answered. I'll go to my second question, which is there are many out there, I would say, that they want to adhere to a secular society, and I think religion shouldn't be really a big part of education, politics, and law, of course. But what can be done, or is there a way for us to combat the fundamentalists in this country? Should we ignore them? Should we entertain them? Should we debunk what they're saying, or show that their claims are invalid? Is there a way that we should combat these types of people, or should we just ignore them when it comes to a secular society or to promote a secular United States and get back to our, I should say, roots?
We don't have a choice about ignoring them. They are a major force in American political life. Speaking as a 10-year state legislator, and never forget that in state legislatures, many decisions are made, sometimes more so than in Congress, that affect our daily lives. And the religious right essentially has veto power over one of two major political parties in the most powerful country in the history of the world. That's pretty impressive. So we don't have a choice. We have to take them on. And I'd suggest a way to take them on, and that's what Secularity USA is about. I encourage people to go to our website at SecularityUSA and check it out. But we need to step back from kind of just saying, oh, you're wrong about religion or something to various religious people, and for one, build a real alliance. We are a growing demographic in America, but we have an ally I don't mean liberal as in Democrat versus Republican liberal, but liberal religious as in socially liberal religious people. Now, I happen to myself have not been religious since childhood, basically, but I nonetheless feel that we can find common cause with the types of folks I'm thinking of, the Unitarian Universalists of the world, the United Church of Christ, the more liberal Episcopalians and Presbyterians, and a lot of the Jewish community. There's a lot of common ground there because most of those that I've just named, if they were to describe who they had more distaste for, it wouldn't be us. It would be the religious right. They view the religious right as really giving them a bad name, and they're hostile. And I'm glad to the religious right point of view. But we need to reach out a hand to them. And then when we join hands with them, we're the majority. We are the majority of Americans by a solid margin. And we need to get out there and utilizing the tools that I'm describing in Secularity USA and in the 10-point vision of a secular America, take the high ground and put the religious right on the defensive, which we've not done yet.
Very well said, and I'm actually going to put a lot of information when it comes to or pertains to Secularity USA. I think it's a really good project. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm actually going to add, I think there was a 30-minute video that I noticed on YouTube about Secularity USA. Is it okay that I use that as a link in the description box?
Please.
Okay, great. Thank you. And yeah, we're definitely going to do that, and we're going to try to promote this as much as possible. I'm going to hand it over to Ned. Ned, there you go.
Thanks. And
Tag, you're
Sean, just like everyone else, I'm really appreciative of you being here tonight. But just so all the audience is clear, you're a lawyer, politician, lobbyist, and an atheist, correct?
Yeah.
When I got to ask, when people were asking you what you wanted to be when you grow up, did you just tell them the most distrusted person in America? No, I'm just kidding.
That's funny. Well, but I mean, it's an interesting question. I mean, but do you think that, here's a way, I think we don't let ourselves be as homey as maybe we are. Put it to you this way. Do you think if you went down the street, went to the mall and said, hey, what do you think of Brad Pitt? You think
Exactly.
most people at the mall would say, oh, Brad Pitt, he's a pretty cool guy. Bill Gates, George Clooney, Warren Buffett. Now, and by the way, I did not use the term atheist, most of my life, because I always thought, when I was growing up, that atheist meant 100% certain. And as a scientifically minded person, I thought, well, I'm not 100% certain. I'd always say agnostic. And I think that's what Warren Buffett says. But my point is all those very, very popular people, respected people, none of them believe in God. And great people in history. I mean, Clarence Darrow. I mean, there's a great, and I quote in my book, This I Believe. Some of your listeners may be aware of that piece. They did it on NPR for a while called This I Believe, but it was basically copied from something they did on CBS radio, I think it was back in the 1950s. And they have one from Eleanor Roosevelt, where basically Eleanor Roosevelt, the most important first lady, unless Hillary gets elected president, the most important first lady in the history of this country. And she basically says in her This I Believe speech, I quote it in my book, that at best she and her husband, the longest serving and maybe most powerful president ever, were essentially not religious. I mean, they say it.
Exactly.
So, she doesn't say it like, oh, we're agnostic, but when you listen to the context of what she's saying, she says, Franklin was like, well, maybe we send our kids to Episcopalian church, which was their church, sort of like to give them the culture or something like this,
Yeah.
They're basically conceding the point that they don't really buy it as a concept. And I think there are many, many good, positive people who have this view. Now, what hasn't happened, however, I mean, you see Jon Stewart recently sort of dismiss lack of religion. This is a not religious guy. He himself is an openly not religious person, but he sort of dismisses, activists and so forth as kind of like the nutty uncle. We got to change that image. And I think that part of the way what we're talking about with Secularity USA is sort of mainstreaming what we're talking about. Because I think you, me, we are good, decent, average Joe and Janes who, want to help our fellow citizen. That's my viewpoint.